Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Castle, and I'm Chief Technology Officer here at the Aerospace Technology Institute. Today's webinar is an opportunity for you to find out more about the new Non-CO2 Technologies Roadmap and the associated funding programme announced in March 2024. You'll also have opportunity to ask questions during our live Q&A. Details for joining Slido are shown on the screen, but you can also join at slido.com using the code ATI Non-CO2, all in capital letters. Slido will open to questions towards the end of the presentations. If you're not familiar with the ATI, we create the technology strategy for the UK aerospace sector and fund world-class R&D working alongside government and industry to transform aerospace through technology and innovation. Since 2014, we have invested over 3.6 billion of government and industry funding in transformational aerospace projects, delivering economic benefit across the nations and regions of the UK. The Non-CO2 Technologies Roadmap is the first of its kind. It reflects the UK aerospace sector's collective view of the research actions needed to improve understanding and reduce broader atmospheric emissions from aircraft. While the sector rightly remains steadfast in its commitment to tackle carbon emissions, we must also take steps to address non-CO2 emissions. As understanding of aviation's non-CO2 impact grows, so too does the market opportunity, and the UK is ideally positioned to unlock technologies which will maintain global connectivity whilst meeting environmental commitments and delivering economic benefit across the UK. I'll now pass over to Adam Morton to talk through the details of the roadmap before we hear from Romina Davudi on the Non-CO2 programme itself. I should just say that a recording of this webinar and the slides will be available on ATI's YouTube channel and on our website. And I look forward to taking your questions after the presentations. Thank you very much.
And I am Head of Technology, Sustainability and Strategy for the ATI, which means that I lead on non-CO2 emissions and technology. And I've been asked to say a few words today on the work that we've been undertaking, developing a non-CO2 emissions roadmap with support from others, including A&G Jefferson and Foresight Transitions. Most importantly, I'd like to explain the non-CO2 priorities that we've identified as part of the work, and also how to interpret the roadmap in the context of the Non-CO2 programme that was launched last month. Before going into what we found whilst developing the roadmap, I think it's worth reminding ourselves why it's important to improve our understanding of non-CO2 and also to develop technologies to address this issue. The figure I'm showing here is the famous David Lee, the well-known radiative forcing diagram, and it shows radiative forcing for a variety of greenhouse gases. It starts with contrails, it works through CO2 and then goes on to include oxides of nitrogen or NOx, water vapor, aerosols and their radiation or radiative interactions. Red bars showing the contribution to warming. The blue bars show the contribution to cooling. The black lines show the degree of uncertainty, and the red bars at the bottom effectively net out the warming and the cooling to show the relative contributions to radiative forcing of not only non-CO2 but also carbon dioxide as well. If you take only three things away from this diagram today, the first of those is that the contribution to radiative forcing from non-CO2 is potentially larger than that from carbon dioxide. Secondly, that there's a high degree of uncertainty associated with the contributions from the individual emissions. And finally, the degree of uncertainty is only likely to increase as we introduce new fuels such as hydrogen and SAF and new technologies in order to take advantage of those new fuels. This is why the UK government in October of last year provided support to fundamental science in non-CO2 space, and more recently support to non-CO2 applied technology. Therefore, the ATI, with industrial and academic inputs, has pulled together a non-CO2 roadmap which is aimed at achieving three things. It aims to consolidate industry and academic views on what the priorities are within this subject area. It's hoped it will help to support relevant tech coming through by supporting evaluation of promising technologies, and it will also be complementary to the work being done by others such as the Natural Environment Research Council, the Department for Transport, and the Jet Zero Council Task and Finishing Group. As well as explaining the significance of non-CO2 for the aviation sector, it's also important to define what we mean by non-CO2 emissions. On this slide, we have carbon dioxide at the top. That is there for comparison purposes in terms of the level of confidence that we have and the duration of the impact. We move on to oxides of nitrogen, the groups of gases containing both nitrogen and oxygen that have both direct effects and indirect effects through interaction with other gases in the atmosphere, including methane and ozone. We recognize water vapor as a greenhouse gas in its own right, but we also recognize water bringing us to contrails as contrails, which can occur when warm, moist engine exhaust comes into contact with cold air at altitude. Aircraft operating on kerosene and other liquid fuels emit certain particulates, and we recognize that these may have direct effects through absorbing and scattering radiation, but also play an important part in contrail formation around particularly areas of ice supersaturated regions. Sulfur in fuel can be released as both SOx and sulfates, and the effects of both of these are thought to be mildly cooling, but it may play a role in contrail formation and is certainly within the context of the roadmap that we're publishing today. Unburnt hydrocarbons, although with modern efficient aircraft engines, the amount of these should be relatively small. They are included here as a potential contributor to climate changes or climate impacts going forwards. So what was the process for producing the ATI non-CO2 roadmap? This effectively began on the 6th of November last year with the ATI attending the Jet Zero Council non-CO2 workshop. This was followed a week later with the ATI including non-CO2 within its annual conference. The outputs from these helped us to set the scope of work for setting the scene for 10 stakeholder meetings that followed. These included consultation with academia, with aerospace, with airlines, with airports, and ultimately involved 90 plus participants from 36 companies and over 20 universities being consulted, and something like 250 hours of project design, delivery, output consolidation, analysis, and drafting. One of the guiding principles from the outset was to leverage not only these sessions, but also workshops and forums that were happening more widely. We were acutely aware we couldn't do it all and needed to capture what was going on elsewhere in the UK and overseas. So what did we actually generate? Well, we generated a huge amount of data. We used this to populate a mural type platform. We took that and started to condense the information and the data that we collected into a range of themes. And then the whole idea was that we would ultimately end with a roadmap in a house style very similar to the ultra efficient, the zero emissions aircraft, and the cross-cutting themes roadmaps that are contained within the destination report. Having explained the importance of addressing non-CO2 emissions, clarifying what we mean by the term non-CO2 emissions, and also talking about the process for collecting the views and insights from both academia and industry. It's now necessary to identify the key themes that have been identified as part of the process. The first of these is fuel characteristics, and this is really concerned with the development and adoption of fuels with the potential for reduced non-CO2 emissions. This certainly includes future low carbon fuels such as hydrogen, existing low carbon fuels such as SAF, but also bearing in mind the timescales necessary for ramping up production of sustainable aviation fuels and the need to continue to use conventional kerosene or Jet A going forwards. It also considers the potential for addressing the non-CO2 emissions associated with the fuel that we use most commonly at the moment. The second theme that we've identified is aircraft technologies. By this, we mean technologies with the potential to address non-CO2 emissions mounted on aircraft. This could be a relatively broad range of different approaches. It certainly includes elements of the fuel or propulsion systems, and one area of particular interest is sensors. I'll come to in a moment, but there is certainly a recognition of the shortage of sensors capable of accurately measuring humidity at altitude. And then the third area, which is included as a swim lane within the technology roadmap, is knowledge, data, and operations. And this recognizes that it may be necessary to fund research related to better understanding through more and better models and collection of better and more complete data. Having identified the three main technology themes contained within the Non-CO2 Technology Roadmap, it's now necessary to consider the sorts of projects that we might see going forwards as part of funding applications. This is a relatively small cross-section of the types of projects, but will give you a feel for the kinds of feedback that we've had when engaging with industry and academia over the last few months. The first of these is hydro treatment, and it's important to recognize that aromatics are an important part of the formation of soot, and that soot has the potential to act as a nucleating agent for the formation of ice, and that ice ultimately becomes the precursor for the formation of persistent contrails. One of the things that therefore may be necessary is to look at the scope for changing either the total amount of aromatics in the fuel or tweaking the individual aromatics within there to avoid the formation of contrails, particularly when flying in those areas of ISSRs. The second area of potential interest is optimization of fuel use. And this recognizes that given the relative shortage of sustainable aviation fuels in the short to medium term and the link between the use of such fuels, it may be important that we use SAF at those points in the flight when we not only get the CO2 benefits, but we avoid some of the non-CO2 implications of those same ISSRs. The third area that we believe may be worthy of attention is contrail modelling. In some cases, we have relatively small numbers of models, and certainly in one area, we may have as little as one model. There is certainly an appetite for developing new ones and also providing additional data to input into those models. Data certainly will be needed from aircraft-mounted sensor systems, but it may also be necessary to get data from space using either satellites or pseudo-satellites, and in some cases we cannot even discount the possibility it will be necessary for collection of data from the ground using technologies such as LiDAR to give additional data points. The fourth area that we believe may be worthy of attention is the role of exogenous aerosols in contrail formations. This is an area of interest that came out very strongly in the conversations that we've had. As you may be aware, as you start to adopt hydrogen and higher blends of SAF, particulate numbers within the exhaust tend to fall, particularly in relation to liquid hydrogen, where you're providing larger amounts of water. It could be that these exogenous aerosols, this is aerosols already present within the atmosphere, unconnected with aircraft operations, could start to actually fulfill some of the functions in contrail formation that would normally be undertaken by the soot in the exhaust. The fifth area that's worthy of attention is sensor technologies. One of the things, again, that came out extremely strongly is that there was widespread agreement that no sensor technology exists that can accurately give measurements of humidity at appropriate altitudes, and also have some of the same or some of the other characteristics necessary for successful deployment. This is something we know is likely to be a focus of both academia and industry in addressing non-CO2 emissions over the next few years. The sixth area is water vapor management. So combustion of hydrogen produces more water vapor than the equivalent amount of kerosene, and therefore its management, it may be necessary to manage its release during the flight, either to minimize persistent contrail formation, or it may actually be that water can be introduced in the cycle either to give better efficiency or improved thrust. And there was certainly some interest in water injection as part of engine cycles as our discussions with stakeholders went forwards. Non-drop-in engine design. So to date, most of the focus on utilization of SAF has been around use of drop-in fuels, typically up to percentages of about 50% blend. Going forwards, it may be that when we fully recognize potential benefits of utilizing non-drop-in fuels, possibly lacking aromatics, and the gains that they deliver in terms of non-CO2, that actually we will have to think about the implications of this for engine design and also other residual systems such as fuel systems and even fuel handling equipment on the ground. Hydrogen combustion I've already mentioned. Aircraft model development and validation. In addition to developing the models, it will also be extremely important to validate those models. And finally, test rigs. One of the themes that was considered during the development of the roadmap was the possibility that some of the observed reduction in particulates associated with utilization of SAF could partly be because of difficulties in fully characterizing SAF combustion, and it seems almost inconceivable that as part of developing mitigation of non-CO2 that we wouldn't see a need and a desire for development and operation of test rigs based around new fuels and new combustion techniques. So finally, we get to see the finished technology roadmap. As I said earlier, it's designed in a house style very similar to the three existing ATI technology roadmaps within the Destination Zero report. It gives a strong nod to some of the milestones and targets contained within those other reports, and as you will see, there is an awful lot to do over the next 5 years. That's largely a function of the fact that in order to progress these technologies to the point where they make a sufficiently high TRL to be included in next generation aircraft, they will need to be progressed at speed, and that's why the program is so important in making sure that future generations of aircraft not only deliver on decarbonisation targets, but also can address non-CO2 in a timely and expedient manner. So in summary, I'd like to think that the ATI have fully recognised the significance of non-CO2 emissions, and that we've also brought out the need to address technology development alongside the fundamental science and closing gaps in our understanding. All of the major non-CO2 emissions from aircraft are eligible for treatment within the roadmap, and also the fuel constituents that drive those non-CO2 emissions. We're also confident that we've engaged with a wide cross-section of experts aiming to avoid gaps or overlap in the work being undertaken. And also the roadmap reflects the UK strengths and should deliver flexibility and resilience in aviation sustainability going forwards into the future. Thank you.
Everybody, my name is Romina Deboudi. I'm a Strategic Portfolio Manager at the ATI, and today I'll be giving a presentation on the Non-CO2 Programme, the competition and funding rules, and the competition process. In terms of the overview of the programme, this competition is closely linked to the Jet Zero Non-CO2 Fundamental Research Competition, which was launched by NERC and DFT last year. We have also launched a new Non-CO2 roadmap, which complements the existing roadmaps in our technology strategy Destination Zero. Our priority is to address challenges and reduce non-CO2 emissions in line with aviation sector's target of achieving net zero by 2050. To do this, we want to foster and encourage closer collaboration and linkage between fundamental research and industrial research projects to reduce non-CO2 emissions in aviation. This competition involves a two-stage application process, outline stage and full stage. The outline stage competition opens 3 times a year, and submissions are made via the ATI website. Applicants will also have the opportunity to submit a draft outline stage application to the ATI and to receive feedback before formal submission. Application at this stage is in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, and no written documents are required. Applications that are in scope will be invited to present their project to a pitch panel, and projects that are successful must submit to one of the 2 upcoming full stage batches, and if they are not able to do so, they must inform the ATI as soon as possible. Applications at this stage of the process are only assessed by the ATI. The second stage of the process is the full stage application that also opens 3 times a year, but submission to this stage is by invitation only. So projects that were successful at the outline stage will be invited to submit on IFS for the full stage. This stage of the competition is a written application format, i.e. there will be questions that will be required to be answered as part of the application. Similar to the outline stage, applicants will have the opportunity to submit a draft FSA to the ATI and to receive feedback before formal submission. This stage of the process, the applications are assessed by DBT, ATI and UK. Before submitting a draft outline stage application, we encourage projects to engage with the ATI Hub and to make use of opportunities for support available, such as technology clinics, where they can discuss their project ideas with ATI technologies. Once you have gone through the outline stage application process, if you're successful at this stage, you will be invited to submit to the full stage application. If you're unsuccessful at the outline stage, you can resubmit your project up to a further 2 times. The full stage application is assessed by DBT and Innovate UK and ATI. And if you are successful at this stage, you will progress into the contracting process via Innovate UK. However, if you are unsuccessful, instructions will be provided in the feedback letter that you received from the Programme Investment Board. All projects, including project partners that submit to the Non-CO2 Programme, must read and sign the ATI Framework Agreement. The quick overview of the competition dates in 2024 that we have currently published on our website. We of course have the opening date and the closing date of the competition, but we also have the date when we will confirm the eligibility and whether projects are going to be invited to the pitch panel. Once projects that are eligible have gone through the pitch panel presentation day, they will receive a notification on the published day on whether they have been successful at that stage of the competition or not. There is no funding available or awarded at this stage of the competition. The second stage is the full stage application, where projects that have been successful at the outline stage will receive a submission link via Innovate UK to submit their application on IFS. More information on this can be found on our website. Funding and competition rules are a key part of the programme. In terms of eligibility, projects that submit to this programme must align with the Non-CO2 Technologies Roadmap, but we also recognise that some projects may span across one or more of the existing roadmaps in Destination Zero. Individual or consortium applications are welcome in this programme, with their primary application in civil aerospace. Project team can be made up of businesses of any size, academic institutions, charities or non-profit organisations, public sector organisations and RTOs. For lead organisations, for industrial research projects, they can be a UK registered business of any size. For capital infrastructure projects, they can be a UK registered business of any size, an RTO or academic institution. The industrial research or capital infrastructure project must be carried out and exploited in the UK. Projects that submit to the Non-CO2 Programme will be subject to 2.5% industrial contribution to the ATI. Projects that we will not fund are those that solely focus on defence, space, or fundamental research, feasibility study, or experimental development. But we do recognise dual-use applications. In terms of funding rules, the maximum grant per project must be 60% or less of the total eligible project costs for each project. Of that 60%, SMEs can request grants of up to 70%, 60% for medium-sized organisations, 50% for large organisations, and 30% for research organisations. In terms of the budget for the programme, our planning assumption is that we will fund grants totalling up to £17 million over the next 4 years, starting in 2024. It's important to highlight that this is not a limit or target, and the projects that we fund will depend on the quality and the number of applications that we receive across the ATI programme. Applicants that pass the eligibility checks will be invited to a 1-hour virtual pitch panel to present their project. The format of the panel will be made up of 5 minutes welcome and introductions, 25 minutes for project presentation, 15 minutes for questions and answers, and 15 minutes panel feedback and assessment, which will be conducted by the panel only. The presentations will be assessed by ATI assessors only. We ask that a maximum of 3 representatives from the project are attending the pitch panels. The name of the attendees must be communicated to the ATI at least 3 working days prior to the date of the panel. The project lead must attend the panel and lead the presentation. A maximum of 10 slides, including the cover slide, must be submitted by project. If more than 10 slides are submitted, they will not form part of the assessment. The presentation duration is strictly 25 minutes and we will not be able to allocate more time. Applicants must also not bring any additional materials to the interview to share with the panel. Applicants submitting to the Non-CO2 Programme must address 2 sets of criteria in their presentation: technology and innovation, exploitation and market. In technology and innovation, what we would like to see is how does the project help deliver the Non-CO2 Technologies Roadmap, and how does it compare to the current technologies available, and what non-CO2 emissions benefits does it deliver. We also would like to see the extent of the ambition of the project and how innovative the project is, and what challenges does it address, and what key technologies and knowledge base it aims to develop. For exploitation and market, what we would like to see is how does the project deliver benefits to the UK, and who are the customers from the project output. What is the current market size, and what are the routes to market identified, and how it will be implemented by the project. We would also like to see if any end users for the technology have been identified or engaged, and what is the timeline for exploitation of the technology or development of the knowledge base, and what is the timeline. As I mentioned earlier, we encourage applicants to engage with the ATI Hub before submitting a draft application. The Hub is an initiative that was established in 2022 and is a great opportunity and a great space to connect with innovators, access expertise, and collaborate with other projects. It offers various opportunities such as Meet the ATI, technology clinics, workshops and showcases, boot camps, and offers several resources whilst you are developing your application. More information is available on ati.org.uk, and you can find out details about future events. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to taking your questions in the Q&A session. We also have detailed information on our website, and if you have any questions or inquiries that the information isn't available on the page, you can contact us via competitions@ati.org.uk.
Well, thank you to our presenters who now join me for our Q&A. And thank you also for some of the questions that we're starting to receive. But as a reminder, the details for joining Slido are shown on the screen, but you can also join at slido.com using the code ATI Non-CO2, and that's all in capital letters. So let's move into the questions and take our first question. And I think for this one, I'd like to direct it to Romina, if that's okay. So the question is, if my project idea stretches across more than one roadmap, how should my application reflect this?
Hi, Jackie. Thanks. So I would say what we expect to see in applications for the non-CO2 program is for the primary application of the technology to be aligned with the non-CO2 roadmap. But as I said in my presentation, we do recognize that it may align with the other roadmaps in Destination Zero. What I would advise is if applicants have any questions or are not sure to register for a technology clinic, have a discussion with one of our technologists and take it from there to make sure that they apply to the right program.
And perhaps, thank you, Romina, perhaps we could just stay with you for a couple of other questions that are coming in around the programme itself. So there's one around, will the ATI develop application guidance for the ATI Non-CO2 programme?
So we do have application guidance for the outline stage. So that's available on our website. So the criteria and the details that we want to see in presentations, that's also included there. We haven't put in a strict structure around the presentation itself because we wanted to give the freedom to our applicants to present the information that the way that they want to present. So what I would say though is that information can be presented either in a form of a graph or text, but we don't accept videos or additional materials as part of the presentation. So I would suggest again referring to the guidance, but just for applicants to present the information they think that would best convey the message they want to convey around their project.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. There is a question which is I will take just on, will today's presentation slides be made available to attendees? And indeed they will. They will be made available on our website and also on our YouTube channel. So this whole video will be available for you to watch back. Perhaps here's another question I could direct to Adam. Will there be a list of UK-based applicants available for partner opportunities?
That's a very good question. We may be able to share information on some of the organisations that we spoke to during the development of the roadmap, but because of GDPR issues, I'd have to explore what's possible. We certainly wouldn't be able to share details on exactly the kinds of areas that those organisations were most interested in, and we'd clearly have to get permission from the road mapping participants as to whether they were happy to have information shared as to their involvement in the process.
I think there'd be the opportunity for people to come with specific questions around partners or gaps of, for sort of knowledge and people to be part of projects that they may have in mind by contacting us on the hub as well. So I think that is probably the best way to approach that, and then we can see what we can share and help with. There is another question around, well, maybe we could just expand on that point on the hub that I've just mentioned. Romina, there was a question about can I engage with the ATI Hub before I apply? Don't know if you want to expand a little more on what the hub can do to help.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we definitely encourage applicants to engage with the ATI Hub and register for a technology clinic to have an initial discussion. So that would be sort of a short session to discuss your project idea, the feasibility and the viability of your project. Following that, you will have the opportunity to submit a draft presentation, draft outline stage application for our technologists to receive detailed feedback specifically on your project. But yes, absolutely, we definitely encourage engagement with the hub before you go to the draft stage.
Thank you. And Romina, could I also ask you to give a little bit of information about who is judging this competition?
Yes, so the outline stage of the competition is assessed by the ATI Technology and Strategy Assessors only. So, but the full stage applications will be assessed by ATI, DBT, and Innovate UK. And the recommendations for funding are made by the PIB, which is the Programme Investment Board, to the ministers. But the outline stage is ATI only.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. We have a couple of questions here linked to the fact that this competition and this programme is part of a sort of shared programme, if you like, with academia through NERC as well. So there was a question around what is the relation of ATI and NERC non-CO2 programmes? Are we planning any engagement between projects of both programmes? And maybe that question needs to be directed in turn to each of you, but Romina, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So the Non-CO2 Programme is a funding programme that we recognise needs a close collaboration between academia and industry. And we do anticipate there to be a direct pull through from some of the fundamental research projects to the industrial projects and the technology development. So yes, absolutely, we are planning on close engagement and with NERC and the FT. I mean, they are our program partners, to make sure that we have that linkage and we create that opportunity for collaboration and that pull through that I mentioned between both sides of the programs. Adam, is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, I'd echo the comments that you made. So the NERC calls are more fundamentally science-based. The ATI is more around applied technology, but we would certainly expect to see outputs from the NERC work informing and having relevance, and then possibly finding their way into later projects of relevance to the ATI.
Yeah, if I can just add, so NERC have finalised the first round of their competition, and it's basically we are now seeing the first set of projects that have come through, and obviously with our competition we will see the first set come through on the industrial side. So using that data and those set of projects, we want to develop the portfolio of projects that obviously will contribute to the delivery of the Non-CO2 roadmap. So it will take a bit of time for us to develop that portfolio, but we are going to be working very closely with our program partners to do that.
And thank you, Romina and Adam. Perhaps another one for you, Adam, to expand on a little bit on the technology. There's a question asking, would ground-based sensor development supporting the knowledge, data and operations stream be eligible?
We'd have to see it in the context of the wider project. So it sounds as though that's related to understanding things like atmospheric humidity. We'd have to, I think, see what the wider context was and see how it fitted with things like on-aircraft technologies and wider data collection and model development.
Okay, thank you. And again, I think those are examples where having that preliminary discussion with the ATI in advance would be useful. If I then go to a few more questions around the funding thresholds and funding levels, Romina, there was a question saying, due to the need to foster collaboration between academia and industry, is there flexibility available in the funding thresholds between different organisations?
So there is, yes, there is a bit of flexibility, and that is the 30% eligible project costs for academia and RTOs. So in terms of the total project costs, eligible project costs, I should say, we have got the funding ratio of 60/40. And of that 60%, basically there is 70% for SMEs, and then we have the 60% for micro organizations and 50% for large organizations and the 30% for RTOs. So in terms of flexibility, it is still the 30%, but again, it is something that we will be monitoring to see going forward in the applications that we receive, to see what level of academic collaboration is there, how can we increase that, but at the moment it is the 30% that we also have for the strategic program.
Okay, and just to, I think therefore you've probably just answered it, but let's just to be clarify it to be certain. There was a question specifically about the RTO's 30%, saying that the funding levels, it was suggested they would only receive 30% of their costs. Is that correct, or is it more usual 30% of the max total project cost?
Yes, it's the 30% of the total eligible project costs.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. And just running through some of the other questions, and please submit any further questions that you may have into Slido, because we are going through them quite quickly. So don't hold back if you've got questions you want to ask, take advantage of submitting them. But we discussed a little bit about the content of the outline stage. Was there anything else that we could further clarify on what content should be included in that stage, Romina?
Yes, sure. So in terms of the content of the presentation, so we have the criteria that we want to see, and that's available on our website. So basically, there are two sets of criteria. So that's technology and innovation, and market and exploitation. So there are also some sub-criteria that we want to see how that information is presented to us in the actual PowerPoint presentation. It's entirely up to the applicant. So it could be in the shape of a graph or some text or an image. As I said earlier, we cannot accept videos or additional material to be brought into the presentation and to be shown to us. So anything that addresses the criteria that we published on our website should be included in the presentation itself. But we wanted to make sure that our applicants have the flexibility to present the information the way they want to present it. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I think that is. And we've had a question to us where people can get a copy of the roadmap. Adam, do you want to expand?
So there is a copy of the roadmap on the ATI website with all the details that you should hopefully need.
Exactly, and the presentation slides, some of the content that you discussed in your presentation, Adam, is also available on the website, isn't it, directly?
Yeah.
So that's good. Adam, maybe I can come back to you. There is a question around what other countries are doing to address non-CO2 emissions, and is there competition?
If I answer the second question first, so yes, there is lots of work being undertaken internationally, Europe, North America, and elsewhere. There is competition, but what we've aimed to do is minimise the overlap, but also play to the strengths of the UK. And one of the things which we were told when we've engaged with stakeholders from other parts of the world is that what fabulous capabilities and strengths that we have in the UK that are applicable to non-CO2, both in academia and industry. We were routinely told that the efforts by the UK to address this were extremely welcome, by organisations overseas, because it was felt that we had a great deal to contribute.
Thank you. I think that's useful, and certainly we will continue to engage with our international sort of counterparts on discussions around this topic, as we do with many others. There are another question. Okay, are hybrid projects possible with content covering both the ATI's current programme and the new Non-CO2 programme? Romina, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we are expecting to see some projects that potentially cut across all of our technology roadmaps. However, applying to the Non-CO2 programme, the primary technology development must align, I should say, with the Non-CO2 Technology Roadmap. As I mentioned earlier, if you would like to be absolutely sure that you're applying to the right program, feel free to register for a technology clinic where you can have a discussion with one of our technologists and confirm which program would be the right one for you to apply. But I would say if you're applying to the Non-CO2 program, it should be your project technology development must align with the Non-CO2 roadmap.
Okay, thank you, Romina. I think that's clear. In terms of coming back to some of the discussion you were just having, Adam, where you were talking about the UK strengths, there's a question for you to maybe expand on that a little bit as to what do you see as the fabulous strengths of the UK with respect to non-CO2?
I mean, it's a big subject. I mean, we certainly, without calling out individual organisations and stressing the sorts of contribution that they're expecting to have, but there is capabilities in terms of aircraft platforms, engines, atmospheric physics, chemistry, meteorology, capabilities within our navigation service providers, within organisations such as the Met Office. If you were to talk to overseas organisations about where do they see capabilities in academia, you would certainly see the top 20 names that are brought forward as including universities that UK universities and academic institutions. And I think one of the bright spots is that capability, we've got capability in depth and breadth. It would be very hard in this format to single out any particular thing, but we're definitely recognised as having breadth and depth in a wide range of areas of fundamental science and applied technology that can be brought to bear in addressing this issue.
Thank you, Adam. And I think that's a really great platform, obviously, isn't it, for us to build from, and what we really hope to achieve great things from the launch of this new non-CO2 programme to address non-CO2 emissions, obviously, for future aircraft. In terms of any further questions, I think we've exhausted those that are coming through on Slido at the moment. So if there aren't any last minute questions, then I think probably we could start to bring our Q&A session to a close. So I will leave it there, I think, yes, and wrap up and thank our presenters for their contribution and for answering the questions that were submitted. So much appreciated. And this will then bring the Q&A session and the webinar itself to a close. We will update the Non-CO2 Programme frequently asked questions page on our website to reflect all of the questions that we received today. And if any further ones come in, obviously we will add those to that as well. There are lots more opportunities to engage with the ATI, including registering for our mailing list, joining our events, and of course, engaging directly on your ideas for all of the 3 funding programmes. There is one further opportunity coming up, which includes Adam speaking on a panel on this theme at the Sustainable Skies World Summit, which is next month. But in the meantime, as we mentioned, you can find out more about the Non-CO2 Technologies Roadmap, the funding programme, and all of the support available from the ATI Hub and other initiatives, all on the ATI website. And that can be accessed and checked before the draft outline stage, which will be opening on the 22nd of April. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again soon, and I wish you a good day and goodbye for now.